All right, let's talk about it. Let's talk about how one movie became, well, way more than just a movie. It became a true, honest-to-goodness global event.
You remember, right? Back in 2019, this was the question on everyone's mind. Endgame wasn't just another blockbuster. It was something else entirely. It was the payoff for a story told over 11 years and more than 20 films. It was appointment viewing.
So to really get why Endgame was such a big deal, we gotta go back, way back. We need to see how Marvel Studios spent a whole decade building this hype machine that Hollywood had literally never seen before.
And that journey, what we now call the Infinity Saga, was just revolutionary. I mean, think about it. It all kicked off with Iron Man back in '08. Marvel started weaving these stories together, putting all these characters in one shared world. Every single movie wasn't just a sequel, it was a new chapter building on what came before, upping the stakes. And in the process, they built this massive, super dedicated fan base all over the world.
And we're not talking about a passive audience here, just waiting for the next movie to drop. No, this was a community, a global one, totally and completely invested in these characters. It felt like they weren't just watching a story, they were living it. So for years, you had fans jumping onto places like Reddit, just speculating, debating, cooking up these incredible theories. They basically became part of the storytelling process. Like there was this huge theory going around, Tony started this, Tony should end it. It just shows you how deep people were getting into the character arcs, into what felt right for the story.
I mean, the passion was just off the charts. All of this intense speculation and engagement, it fueled a hype machine that was, honestly, almost as fun as the movies themselves. It created this feedback loop that made Endgame feel, well, not just like a movie you wanted to see, but one you absolutely had to see.
All right, so that's the setup. Let's talk about the movie itself. How did it actually deliver a payoff that was, let's be honest, both super complex and, for everyone who'd been on that long ride, deeply, deeply satisfying?
So the heart of the movie really was this thing they called the time heist. And it was such a smart move, right? It let the story basically go on a victory lap through its own history. It was like a greatest hits tour filled with inside jokes, callbacks, and emotional moments. It was 100% pure fan service, and you know what? It totally worked.
And you want to know how complex this thing was? The time travel rules were so twisty that even the people who made the movie couldn't agree on what happened at the end with Captain America. You had the writers on one side saying it was all one timeline, a closed loop. Then you had the directors on the other side saying, no way, he had to have created a whole new timeline. It's wild.
And look, let's be real. Endgame was not a perfect film, not by a long shot. Critics had a field day with plot holes, and some of the action was a bit messy. But that really wasn't the point, was it? It wasn't celebrated for being flawless. It was celebrated because it gave us this powerful, emotional, and just fitting ending for those original 6 heroes we'd followed for so long.
And honestly, nothing illustrates that perfect payoff better than Tony Stark's final line. But here's the crazy part. That iconic line, the one that brings his entire journey full circle, it was a last-minute idea. It was suggested in editing just a few months before the movie came out, and it just completely sealed the deal on his sacrifice. Amazing.
Okay, so the movie sticks the landing, but the release? Oh, the release was something else entirely. This wasn't just a premiere, it was a cultural phenomenon. An event that didn't just break records, it smashed them. And it was all anyone could talk about everywhere.
The numbers are just mind-blowing. Almost $2.8 billion worldwide. For a minute there, it even knocked Avatar off the top spot as the highest-grossing movie of all time. I mean, that just shows you the sheer skull of its appeal. It hit everywhere.
So who was showing up for this? Well, if you look at surveys of the hardcore fans, you see it's mostly young and mostly male. But you don't get to $2.8 billion with just one group. The box office tells the real story. Its appeal was way, way bigger than that. This was a movie for literally everyone. And let me tell you, that global success did not happen by accident, not at all. It was all part of a very deliberate global-first strategy. They released the movie everywhere at the same time, had all the translations ready to go, sent the stars all over the planet. They made sure fans everywhere felt like they were all part of the exact same moment. It was genius.
And the production itself, just legendary. Get this, that funeral scene for Tony Stark.
Every single one of those actors was physically on set. That wasn't a bunch of CGI. Can you imagine the scheduling nightmare? They've literally called it the most complicated scheduling shot in the history of cinema. The scale is just unbelievable.
But here's the thing. When you hit a peak that high, a peak that's just so monumental, the question becomes, what now? Where do you go from here? And this is where Endgame's greatest victory also became its biggest, most difficult challenge.
And the drop-off, it was fast and it was steep. You can see it right in the data. When Endgame came out, Google searches for Avengers were at a perfect 100, peak interest. And today, it's a tiny fraction of that. It's a really clear picture of how things have cooled off since that high point.
And it's not just the data saying this. You hear it from people in the industry, too. Mark Miller, the guy who literally wrote the Civil War comic, he came right out and said it. He said Endgame felt like the end of an era, like the last truly great superhero movie.
And, well, the box office numbers really tell the tale, don't they? The average take for a Marvel movie these days is less than half of what it was in the run-up to Endgame. The math is pretty simple. A huge chunk of that audience just isn't showing up anymore. So what happened? Well, it seems like the very thing that made the Infinity Saga so powerful, how everything was connected, it kind of backfired. Once you had that perfect, definitive ending with Endgame, it became, well, homework. If you missed a movie or show, you felt lost. And if you feel lost, you're probably not going to show up for the next one. It's like a vicious circle.
Which leaves us with the big one, the ultimate question. And it's not just a question for Marvel. It's for all of Hollywood, really. Was Endgame just lightning in a bottle? A perfect storm of story and timing and fan passion that can never, ever be repeated? Or is there a way to get that magic back?